You believe him, or is that something that's easy to say today, looking back?
No, I completely believe him. Look, he had already retired once, so he knew how much he wanted to play basketball. And, of course, he came back a few years later. He had just made it clear that he was only going to play for Phil Jackson. And when Phil Jackson didn't return, it was a wrap. Now, I was surprised last night that Jackson said, you know, Jerry Reinsdorf gave him the opportunity to come back, but it was kind of half-hearted in that they still were going to do a rebuild. And so I think it was a little disingenuous to offer him to come back when you're going to rebuild. I think there are only two ways a dynasty should break up. One is you get beaten on the court, or two, your superstar player that leads the team just gets old and decides to step away and retire. It should not be the front office deciding when you're still the best team in the world with the best player in the world that you're going to rebuild. Jerry Krause should have understood. You get just as much glory and credit by reloading around Michael Jordan 3 times, because they would have had to reload rather than just trying to rebuild completely, which obviously never came to pass. So you look at Scottie Pippen, he had 2 years left. The next 2 years, he played the full season, so you should have brought him back. And then could you have gotten more out of Rodman? Perhaps. He only played 35 more games the rest of his career for other teams. But even if you had to replace Rodman, that's where Krause could have shown his expertise and gone out and got somebody to replace Dennis. I think they could have won a 7th straight.
It would have been a 7th straight. I know we skipped those 2 years where Jordan didn't play, even though he kind of played one of them, but they could have won a 7th. Here's the thing. It's an amazing sliding doors moment because it would have been another brutal loss for the New York Knicks if they hand to Michael Jordan. What happened that next season? The Knicks sneak into the playoffs as an 8 seed. Allen Houston has his runner. Larry Johnson has his 4-point play. That team doesn't even make the playoffs if Jordan's Bulls make the playoffs. The 8 seed gets knocked out. And I do believe, Broussard, they would have made the NBA Finals. But I think they would have been done winning titles because in those NBA Finals, David Robinson and Tim Duncan were waiting for them, and they never had to deal with the great center in the NBA Finals. And the following year, it would have been Shaquille O'Neal waiting for him. So for that reason, and for another maybe more important reason, I think the timing worked out perfectly for Michael Jordan, and here's why. I believe Game 6 in 1998 against the Utah Jazz was the greatest game Michael Jordan ever played. And the stat line, it's like, okay, it was a really good game, but the greatest, he had 45, 1-1, 15 of 35 from the field. But what you saw last night, and I hope people that didn't quite remember it now do, was that he was an offense unto himself that night. It was, you were facing the specter of a Game 7 on the road in the toughest arena in basketball. Jordan scores over half of his team's points. Pippen's back is out. Rodman's on his last legs. The only role player that really stepped up was Kukoc. And not only did Jordan carry them for the first 47 minutes, but he had the most storybook final 45 seconds of a career, even though we know he came back, one could have. The layup to get the 2-for-1 and to tie the game, the steal you're seeing right now on Malone, and then the iconic jumper. It was a perfect ending to his time in Chicago. And while I would have been impressed if they made the finals the next year and then lost to the Spurs, a lot of people have decided the single worst thing you can do in the NBA is lose in the finals, not in the first round or miss the playoffs. The worst thing you do is lose in the finals. So it probably would have besmirched his legacy for some. So I think it worked out perfectly for Mike because I think he walked away from Chicago having just played the single greatest game he ever played in Chicago. So Wildes, even if he wanted to, I think Phil Jackson did him a favor by walking away when he did.
I think that's a good point, Nick. I think the narrative leans in Jordan's favor that he's 6-0. But I want to push back on Reinsdorf's assertion that it would have been a financial impossibility to bring that team back. There was 2 interesting tweets I saw. The first one's from Bobby Marks, great guy, and he said that there's 3 people signed the biggest deals of their career. It was Luke Longley, Scottie Pippen, and Steve Kerr. So then Dusty, our esteemed researcher, dug in a little bit more on the salaries of the 98 Bulls and what could have been the 99 Bulls. It doesn't look that bad. Jordan has a huge salary, of course, but these other increases are not, outstanding to the point that you couldn't make it work. Now, the other thing, and Broussard mentioned this, is Rodman. Now, the thing about Rodman is it's not necessarily the money. If you look at all the money, Rodman's salary goes down. Here's Mannix, more convinced than ever that no coach or team could have extracted the production from Rodman that Phil and the Bulls got out of him in those first 3 years. 3 years. Rodman played 35 games for 2 teams after that. His career is basically over. Now, Broussard, I'm going to disagree with you a little bit. I don't think Rodman's career was over physically. I think it was over because he couldn't get managed. Phil managed him perfectly. You could go let him go to join the NWO before a finals game. I don't know if any other coach could let him do that. So I think there was more in Rodman's tank, but he was just mismanaged.
No, I think that's fair. And I do, because remember, he was a problem in San Antonio before he went to the Bulls. So I totally agree. Jordan and Phil Jackson did a great job with Rodman, so they may have gotten more out of him. However, it's an unknown. And I think if they had decided to rebuild, you saw Jerry Krause did 3 sign-in trades that summer. He could have been able to figure something out to get 1 or 2 players to try to replace what Rodman gave him. And I'm going to push back on something Nick said, that Jordan hadn't met great centers in the finals. But he had dismantled or beaten great centers in the Eastern Conference playoffs. He obviously had to go through Ewing several times. He went through Shaq, who had a great supporting cast, and a healthy Penny Hardaway, who at that time was tremendous. And then great three-point shooting around the interior center in Dennis Scott and Nick Anderson. So I think Jordan and a good supporting cast with Pippen and others could have handled the Spurs' Twin Towers.
But none of that works without, to Wild's point, Phil Jackson sort of being the glue. We talk so much about Jordan's impact. Phil Jackson really had the understated impact to all of those guys. Would you agree, Nick, that he was sort of become the understated hero throughout that whole stretch?
Yeah, 1,000%. And I thought the stories at the end with Phil were incredibly poignant and a great reminder for a guy who, listen, his time with the Knicks was obviously a disaster. His comments on LeBron and the circle around LeBron were, to be generous, they were uncouth, and you probably could call him a few other things. But no one should forget he is the greatest basketball coach of all time, and it's not close. With respect to Pop, it's not close. Phil Jackson, in a 12-year stretch, won 9 NBA titles with players, none of whom had ever won a single title. He won 3 with Michael and Scottie. Michael goes away. They make the second round twice. Michael comes back. They win 3 more. Phil takes 1 year off, and then they win another 3 immediately in Los Angeles. What he did, and by the way, then 2 more a decade later with Kobe and Powell. Phil Jackson and his accomplishments, Broussard, I think it's almost been forgotten. He has as many rings as Bill Russell does. And what you saw it at the end when Michael said, you got Michael Jordan writing poetry because Phil Jackson has somehow mind melded him. And what he did with Rodman. And I even thought the moment where Rodman wasn't at practice and he just tells the media, he's not here, don't know why he's not here. Like his ability to control each situation, I thought was so critical given the cauldron that those Bulls teams were in.
No, I agree with you, Nick. I think Phil Jackson is the GOAT among NBA coaches. And what he did the year Jordan was gone when they won 55 games and played well in the playoffs without Michael. Remember, Jordan and Kobe, as great as they are, never won championships without Phil. I said this before, I'll say it again. For all his issues that he later had with LeBron that you mentioned, Nick, had Phil Jackson become a coach for LeBron James early in LeBron's career, I think LeBron will have more championships as well. And the GOAT conversation, in many people's opinion, might be different.
All right, well, with the Jordan doc in the books, we're now going to turn to Wildes to tie a little bow upon it, where he's going to be handing out awards for literally everything. We're giving him 60 seconds to do it. Use your time wisely, buddy. The clock starts now.
Jenna. Okay, thank you. The award for the most graceful move, Karl Malone going on to the bus to say congratulations to Michael. The award for best pregame parade. Now, a lot of people go for the post-game parade or the post-championship, but congratulations to the city of Indianapolis. The rare pregame parade. I liked it. The award for simple but good idea. Earplugs. You guys got crowd noise? We got earplugs. Simple. The award for best added storyline that they should bring back. Give the MVP out before a playoff game. Added drama. I would just love it. Best tunnel vision award. Congratulations, Jerry Sloan, who didn't know that Jordan was sick somehow and also didn't know the final score of Game 3 of the finals. So congratulations, Jerry Sloan. The award for best Porsche vanity license plate. I was in the running for this one, but we're going to go to Michael Jordan Air. Congratulations, Michael. The Grammy for best pregame music, Broussard. Kenny Lattimore. Really a banger to get ready for the big finals. Best Leonardo DiCaprio cameo. Big upset here. Leonardo DiCaprio gets that one. And the best teammate, this is a personal one, Libby Geist, my wonderful wife, who was the executive producer on the film. In all seriousness, it's been wonderful to see the whole world embrace the project. If you worked in sports, this project has been kicked around for 20 years, and it never came to fruition. It took a championship team, Netflix, ESPN, Jordan, Mandalay, Jason Hare's team, the entire team, also pulled it off in an advanced timeline with no face-to-face meetings, everything over Zoom. So I'm very proud of her. I'm happy to be her Pippen, to her Jordan.
The comments for Wildes to his wife are echoed by all of us. She did an amazing job, and everyone that worked on it did an amazing job. If I may, I know it's your award segment. I'm going to add one award of my own before we're done. The award for least or most implausible explanation is the whole thing about the pizza.
Oh, yeah.
Why is Michael Jordan ordering a pizza with his name on it? Why does the pizza place know it's for Jordan? Why are you eating a pizza 5 guys delivered for you? I feel like we need a documentary from the documentary about the pizza by itself.
Totally.
Because I think there are some more layers there, and I don't mean layers by deep dish pizza, Jenna.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.